happened at the first Thanksgiving, or what some of us like to call it, the first Thanks-taking. According to popular myth, the Indians, that's us, and the Pilgrims, that's them, sat down and had a wonderful dinner. Everyone got along and held hands in friendship. Everyone lived happily ever after. The end. The truth has been largely buried for 396 years. In 2020, Plymouth is planning to celebrate 400 years of Pilgrim mythology. And I don't think that anyone from United American Indians of New England is going to be invited to address that banquet. And if we are, rest assured that no advance copy of our remarks will be sent. But here is the truth. We might say that the first Thanksgiving occurred when the Pilgrims arrived here and gave thanks for the untimely deaths of most of the Wampanoag due to diseases contracted from earlier European visitors. As a result, when the Pilgrims arrived, they found the fields already cleared and planted, and they called them their own. The first officially declared day of Thanksgiving in Massachusetts was proclaimed in 1637 by Governor Winthrop of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He did this to give thanks for the safe return of the white men from the colony who had gone to what is now Mystic, Connecticut, to participate in the massacre of over 700 men, women, and children of the Pequot Nation. The Pilgrim William Bradford, in his famous history of the Plymouth Plantation, rubbed his hands together with delight and had this to say about the Pequot massacre. Those that escaped the fire were slain with the sword. Some hewed to pieces, others run through with their rapiers, so as they were quickly dispatched, and very few escaped. It was conceived they thus destroyed about 400 at this time. It was a fearful sight to see thus frying in the fire, and the streams of blood quenching the same. And horrible was the stink and scent thereof, but the victory seemed a sweet sacrifice. And they gave the prayers therefore to God, who had wrought so wonderfully for them, thus to enclose their enemies in their hands and give them so speedy a victory over so proud and insulting an enemy. Year after year, the white settlers of Massachusetts gave thanks for the ongoing deaths of the indigenous peoples of New England, culminating with the years of King Philip's War, which was 1676 to 1677, when the whites declared, quote, a day set apart for public thanksgiving, because there now scarce remains a name or family of the Indians, but are either slain, captivated, or fled. About the only true thing in the mythology is that these pitiful European strangers would not have survived their first several years in New England were it not for the aid of the Wampanoag people. What native people got in return for this help was genocide, the theft of our lands, and never-ending repression. Our mourning began the minute the English first landed. And another truth, the reason that the myth makers prefer to talk about the Pilgrims and not the earlier English-speaking colony Jamestown is that in Jamestown the circumstances were way too ugly to hold up as an effective national myth. For example, the white settlers in Jamestown turned to cannibalism to survive, and that's not a very nice story to tell kids in school. The Pilgrims did not find an empty land any more than Columbus discovered anything. Every inch of this land is Indian land. The Pilgrims, who called themselves saints, did not come here seeking religious freedom. They already had that in Holland. And they only wanted religious freedom for themselves. They came here as part of a commercial venture. The Mayflower Compact was nothing more than a bunch of white men sticking together to ensure that they would get a return on their investment. They introduced sexism, racism, and a class system to these shores. And guess what? They did not even land at the sacred shrine down the hill called Plymouth Rock, a monument to racism and oppression which we are proud to say we've buried not once but twice in 1970 and again in 1995. Upon arriving on the Outer Cape, the Pilgrims opened my ancestors' grave and took funeral objects. They also took as much of our corn and bean supplies as they could carry. Massasoit, the great sachem of the Wampanoag, knew of this, yet he and his people welcomed the settlers, saving them from extinction, little knowing how many Wampanoag and other native would be enslaved or killed by their guns or dead from their diseases. Later, from the very beautiful harbor that you can see behind you, the pious pilgrims sold my ancestors as slaves for 220 shillings each. And in today's money, that would be around 33 US dollars.
We want to give a shout out to those who are observing Unthanksgiving at Alcatraz Island this morning, and to all our people everywhere who are taking the time to mourn our ancestors instead of celebrating Thanksgiving. We understand that there was a sunrise ceremony in Washington State this morning, in Oregon, and that people in Baltimore are spending an hour right now honoring National Day of Mourning and also supporting Walmart workers there. Supporting Walmart workers is a good way to honor National Day of Mourning. And there are small observances happening in many places all around the country and the world. We welcome everyone who has traveled here as our family. New York City is here. Thank you once again to the International Action Center for bringing a bus from Manhattan. There's also a Haitian community bus that came from Brooklyn. Merci à Daoud et notre amis haïtien. Don't make fun of me, I'm sorry. We want to welcome our union sisters and brothers from Local 8751 bus and school bus drivers who help us with the logistics every single year since 1970. And we want you to find out more about them and the fact that some of our union brothers need to get their jobs back. All right? Local 8751. And in this time of rampant Islamophobia in many quarters throughout the world, we want to give a special welcome to our Muslim friends who are here today. When I look out, I see people standing here from the four directions. And when we had the prayer ceremony earlier, the four directions were represented there. That was such a powerful prayer ceremony. Those prayers, those dances are so ancient. You know, the Spanish and the Pilgrims came here, and they're new to this country. They don't understand the land here. They don't understand what it is to live here yet. That's why we're trying to teach about this. But when we hear these prayers that are so old, we know them in our hearts, and we have this strong spirit feeling that we all got from this ceremony this morning, and I'm so grateful for everyone who was part of that. So now, let us all focus together on our ancestors and come together, all our ancestors.
Do not let anyone tell you that it cannot be done. We can do it. We can change the world. Just recently, Amazon.com had some Nazi symbols put all over the New York subway system. All over the New York subway system. And people started writing letters, started complaining, and the symbols are coming down. The Confederate flag, people fought against that. And the Confederate flag is not flown anymore. Do not underestimate your power. You have it. For lack of a better word, you have it. Do not underestimate it. And yes, there will be times when you'll be afraid. There will be times when you'll be afraid. But what do you prefer? Not to fight and walk on your hands and knees for the rest of your lives? Take that message back to your organizations, to your communities, to your places of worship, everywhere. And do not turn away. Right? Because if you think that we're not in trouble, you're mistaken. There's a lot of problems coming from all four directions and in every which way.
The water and all the elements that we have here, I think we need to understand that they have memory. They have been with us all along, all these 40-some, almost 50 years here. These trees will actually you will actually understand that they have memory. And as anything, they remember all the speeches, all the people that have been here over the 40 years or so.
Statement from Leonard Peltier to 46th National Day of Mourning, November 26, 2015. Brothers and sisters, it makes my heart happy to know so many of you are keeping this day of mourning event going. I hear there is going to be a National Geographic movie this month called Saints and Strangers about the real Thanksgiving. I want you to know that I know this has only come about from your combined protest and determination to expose what really happened. But damn, has it ever taken so long? Let's hope this film does tell the truth. I, for one, thank you very much, as this is what it was and is what it's all about. Getting the real history told about the genocide that was committed against us as a race of people and against our nations. If we don't do this, then it can and will happen again until we have all been exterminated. I'm so proud of you young people out there too, all over the country, standing up for our nations and taking over, because some of us can no longer get out there to stand by your sides or to stand there with you and shake your hands. February 6, 2016 will make it 40 straight years in here. 40 straight years. And under the laws, I was indicted for life. A life term was 7 years. I have served over 6 life sentences. As you know, I was sentenced to only 2. To Native peoples, this is also not surprising. In fact, this is something that happens on a regular basis throughout Indian country. And as always, this is not acceptable to us. So we protest, and we protest some more. Over the last 4 decades, I have been supported by people of all backgrounds and races and religions. As we approach the 1-year mark on President Obama's remaining time in office, it is crucial for my survival that everyone who has ever supported my release to please contact my official committee that works on behalf and coordinates the organization with me. In 2008, when asked about my case, then Senator Obama supposedly said, and we quote, "Show me the support," unquote. If all of you dedicate some of your time in 2016 to support my bid for clemency, I believe this president has the courage to do the right thing and let me go home. Remember too that we have brothers and sisters who are themselves wrongfully incarcerated. And I ask that we all coordinate to put an end to these injustices. I better end this before you get bored with me. So again, thank you, all of you, for being decent, loving human beings. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, Dr. Leonard Peltier.
on all the West land. And here we are, many hundreds of years later, and the land that the native people were pushed onto, that was the worst land then, is the best land now. And why is that? That's because the best land that they took from us, they poisoned and destroyed with clear cutting and mining and poisoning the water with oil and toxic chemicals and our air with the smoke of their industry. All for little pieces of paper. Paper! On the land we borrow from our grandchildren. They stole our future for scraps of paper.
When the Europeans came into our harbors with their little boats, no one could have imagined the destruction that would follow. So many native people died so rapidly that scientists now say it caused planetary climate change. Millions of living beings, animals, insects, birds, fish, plants, were wiped out by the ravages of European colonialism. The land and water and sky have been violated. All of this is in our hearts as we stand here today. Indigenous people are largely erased in mainstream media, in government statistics, in discussions of race and racism. Additionally, we have to deal with disrespect and cultural appropriation. That is what happens when people rip off our cultures and designs, or when you see pop stars and white kids at music festivals walking around with their fake headdresses. But we resist this erasure at every opportunity, whether it is by public awareness events like today, or by teaching our languages and cultures to our children. There is still a lot of racism directed at us by hateful people, the same kind of people who want to keep waving their precious Confederate flags. They don't care that our Native youth have the highest suicide rate in the country. In fact, some bigots joke about things like this. These racists ignore or mock the extreme disparities in health, housing, education, and income that Indigenous people face daily. Even when we speak loud and clear for everyone to hear on an issue that should be a matter of simple human decency, when we say that schools and sports teams need to stop using racist mascots and team names, some white people refuse to listen. Pray today for all of our sisters and brothers in prison. Additionally, we are glad to note that the right to participate in sweat lodge ceremonies will now be legally restored to Native prisoners in Massachusetts as a result of a court decision 2 days ago. Violence and sexual assault against Native women continue to be rampant. In Canada, there is a push for an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Thousands of Indigenous women are trafficked, missing or murdered in Mexico and the U.S. as well. We pray today for them and their families. This violence against women is deeply tied to the violence against the earth that has happened since the first day of the European invasion. I pray too for transgender people who honored a Transgender Day of Remembrance this week. We have talked for many years here about how much we all hate Columbus Day. The campaign to abolish Columbus Day and declare the second Monday in October to be Indigenous Peoples Day has really gained ground this year, with cities ranging from Albuquerque to Seattle to Ann Arbor coming on board. And we are happy to announce that we are initiating a campaign for this in both Cambridge and Boston with the support of some folks from the North American Indian Center of Boston. Some of you here went on the Justice or Else March in DC last month. I'm hearing it. That march was amazing in part because it did so much to strengthen the links between Black and Brown people. And this understanding will grow stronger. Due largely to the work of Black Lives Matter and other Black-led movements, this year has been one in which awareness about death by police and in custody have been brought to the forefront nationally. And before I say anything else, I want to say, Black Lives Matter.
We call every and all indigenous nations to gather in the sacred homeland to demand the master puppeteers of the US and all Latin American countries to stop their orgy of bloody oppression, poverty, and destruction. To tell the master puppeteers of the civilized world that if they are united for globalization of death, we will globalize rebellion. Indigenous nations will be united to restore balance in our sacred homelands, to restore balance in our Mother Earth, and we will be sovereign, and we will flourish, and we will fulfill our destiny.
Some of you may be surprised to learn that Native people are over-incarcerated and have very high rates of death by police and deaths in custody, comparable to the rates experienced by Black people in the U.S. I know that some people now are using the slogan Native Lives Matter, not meaning to appropriate the term for Black people so much as to draw attention to what is happening to our people too. You may not even have heard about the cases of Native people who have died. Paul passed away in Denver, Sarah Lee Circlebear in South Dakota, many more. So please learn more about this after you leave today. We pray for all of the victims of state violence and their families, that they will find justice. Throughout the Americas, Indigenous people are on the front lines of many struggles against pipelines, fracking, mining, tar sands. This is because many of these projects are going directly on or through or near our treaty lands. President Obama recently turned down the Keystone XL pipeline project after more than 6 years of silence on it, and that was great news. That victory came about because of the steadfast resistance of Indigenous people and allies, and there are many more fights to come. For instance, right here in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island, there have been struggles against a company called Spectra and their natural gas operations. Everywhere, Indigenous people have been talking about the sacred water, or Rosalba said, Madre Agua, Mother of Water. People have been walking for the sacred water. We cannot live without water, the water that is being poisoned and wasted. In August, the Environmental Protection Agency caused a toxic mine spill in Colorado that led mining poisons to be unleashed on the Colorado, Animas, and San Juan rivers. The portion of the Navajo Nation along there could no longer draw water for livestock and crops, and farmers wept at the sight of their crops dying. Despite urgent pleas, federal government agencies such as FEMA have refused to give the Navajo Nation the help that it needs to deal with and recover from this disaster. In Arizona, John McCain and other corrupt politicians have signed Oak Flat, which is a sacred Apache site, over to a mining company, and we must work to reverse that. In Hawaii, the University of Hawaii wants to build the world's largest telescope atop sacred Mauna Kea, but Native Hawaiians and allies have been doing everything possible to protect Mauna Kea and stop that from happening. Some of you may know that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission presented its report about the Indian residential schools this past year. The suffering and genocide caused by the residential schools continues to resonate in many lives and communities there, and in the U.S. as well. In Mexico, Indigenous students and many other people have been murdered by government forces in Ayotzinapa and elsewhere. Some of us consider Palestinians to be our Indigenous cousins. Our histories have so many parallels, and they continue to endure daily violence, the theft of their land, the destruction of their homes, the murder of their children. In Australia, in Brazil, and country after country, Aboriginal people are dealing with many of the same issues that we deal with here. We pray for and stand in solidarity with them. Some of us believe that this generation of youth will really be able to make change in the world and lead the way. We can see that happening already, with Native youth providing leadership on matters in their own communities and attempting to bring some reality into international discussions on climate change. Indigenous students also are an important part of the inspiring fightbacks against racism happening on campuses all over the country. including Native students in this region at UMass, Brown, Dartmouth, Yale, Harvard, and elsewhere. The history we talk about here is not just something that we can forget about or get over. It is with us every day. It is literally in our bones and our blood in every cell. But I do believe that we can heal and transform when we talk about these things. Come together in community, work together to decolonize our minds and make a better world, just as we are doing today.